active community of investors. Investors, people who are also support your investment business, and deals are happening. The ultimate goal for Grid is to help you build wealth through investment strategies. You know, Israel says it best. You are selling homes day in and day out, but what about you having an opportunity to take advantage of that, perhaps flip, or perhaps that investment strategy, or that person was saying, I really want to get out and, you know, my life has changed, and you could be that solution for them. You're doing it for your clients, but it's time for you guys to get in the game. And Israel will talk a little bit about that in a second. We're not gurus. We're a bunch of people all learning and growing together. And that's why some of you guys are probably entry level, right? You have a desire to learn. We meet you at where you're at here. We've seen some people do some of their first deals out of here, partnering with other experts in the market. So I'm a big believer in, just because we're getting started, it doesn't mean that you don't belong here. Those are the people who we actually want here, because you're going to run across a deal. And in my philosophy is this: never say no to the deal because you don't have the money. That if you have the opportunity, the money will always find you. You just need to know who to call. Okay, so that's what our focus here is at Grid.
1 second. I'll give you a clicker.
Okay, you guys are all getting to see my emails. All right, so here's the mission: to connect, to learn from each other, to collaborate with like-minded people who are interested in building wealth and creating an impact through real estate. Those of you who have been to our Grid classes before, you know that. And we welcome people from all over, all levels, and we have some lifelong learners here. So let's just stay curious. Let's just always make sure that we're focused on learning. And most importantly, I'm going to do a disclaimer. We're not your tax advisors. We are not your attorneys. We are not your financial advisor. So make sure you consult with your financial team, your attorneys, and your tax advisors. As long, you know, if you want to get into the investment game, the same way you need a good team of contractors, you also need a good team of advisors who can help you. Drew may disagree with me every once in a while when I put him on the phone with my financial advisor, but do we have a clicker, or are you clicking? Okay. So that's the important lingo stuff for everyone who's listening online. And our online people, they're good, right? They're seeing us, they're seeing everything. Tell them I said hello, sending them lots of love. Okay. This is not clicking with me. All right, so I'm going to keep on moving. I already gave you the disclaimer. So who am I? My name is Veronica Figueroa. I run the big team. This is our office. We are a small team of about 60 agents at any given day. But what's really cool is we want them also to bring us opportunities. So when we say to them, hey, listen, you have a unique seller situation and you know they can't sell traditionally, we in the past have partnered with iBuyers. If we got a deal that needs to be we need a wholesale deal, we'll call Drew, or we'll call Israel, we'll call somebody who can make the deal happen. And the reality is some people do not want to sell the traditional route. We get so many we have so many conversations with people that are like, I don't want to show my home, I don't want to unpack, I don't want to do repairs. And these are some of the conversations that, as we're talking to sellers over and over again, we have a dedicated team that know how to identify these opportunities. And guess what? We get to determine that the traditional route is not always the best route, right? For a long time, real estate agents thought that that is what they had to say. But as you become a skilled expert in this industry, you know that you get to help people navigate through this journey based on what's most important to them. And in the last 2 years, in 2001 and 2020 and 2021, and at the beginning of 2022, we sold probably over 2,500 homes to sellers who chose an alternative route, whether they went cash options, iBuyer options, wholesale investments, etc. So, and I'm not following that right now. I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about me. All right, so Drew, I'm gonna ask you to come up because we're gonna get into owner financing subject to and lease options. Drew Okendo, who is someone that we have been a partner with for a little over probably 3 years now, almost going on 3 years. We met during the pandemic. Actually, I mentioned before.
That's a funny story too.
That's a funny story. Well, you want to tell them about that story? That we'll tell them later.
No, you don't have a story.
Yeah. Sometimes I have to put guardrails on Drew. But we're gonna have Drew have a seat and get comfy up here. And this is one of the topics that he's extremely passionate about. This is his jam. This is what he does day in and day out. Leverage other people's money and opportunities, right? But to create always a win-win. That is one of the most important things. A lot of times people think, oh, these investors, they're trying to make lowball me or this. No, they're trying to solve someone's problem while creating a win-win for everybody. And I think that's one of the things I want to make sure that anyone who's listening, this is what we're focused on. Creating a win-win, creating wealth, and solving someone's problem. The next person that I'd like to bring up is Israel Herrera, who is one of my favorite people as well, and one of my partners. I've had the opportunity of buying a couple properties with him and doing some fun stuff with him, and we're just getting started. And I think he's probably mentored and helped a lot of people in this room or people who might be listening in on. Drew, Israel and his wife worked together as a team. Last year, they flipped probably about 40 homes. 44 homes last year, acquired a couple for themselves as well. And this year, what's the goal?
100.
100 homes acquired this year. And in addition to that, he has created out of demand, and this is because people have asked him, a coaching program that coaches and teaches people who want to partner with him or learn the strategies from all over the country, exclusive access to his coaching, very limited, worth it, but it will change the way you think about investments and give you the confidence to build your investment portfolio. So welcome, Israel. Everybody give him a round of applause. And this man is out there flipping homes and took the time to be here with me because he's passionate about educating you guys. And also if there's an opportunity for you guys to partner, he's your guy. He's someone I trust dearly. Don't forget, I'm a toll collector. All right, so what is owner financing? I'm not going to read through these slides because I'm not a big believer in reading through every single slide, but you guys, I will make sure if you're here, if you scan this QR code before you leave, you will get these. Jenny, if they scan that, can we make it a point where this one goes to the meetup and we will have your email, we'll be able to download your email and send you this entire deck so that you could use this for education. You can go back and from there you can educate your buyers and sellers and perhaps your network. But we'll run through this pretty quickly. We'll talk about owner financing, which seller financing, a part of the transaction. Why do we do it? Let's talk about the pros for buyers as Isis, can you run with me? Because I'm already switching. There we go. The pros for why a buyer would want to negotiate with a seller alternative financing terms. Drew, we're going to just go ahead and run through this without reading through it because I want real life scenarios here. Why is it that you approach these scenarios? I'll give you obviously the fast way to close, ability to purchase, obviously lower closing costs, not tie up your credit, right?
Yeah.
Why do people do this? How often do you see them doing it? And is it realistic that they're doing it in this market?
Yes, it's realistic to do it in this market and every market because, as you know, I mean, we were doing seller finance deals before the market shifted, and I've been doing it for the last 9 years, on and off, of course. So there's always opportunity to get seller finance deals. It's not that buyers don't want to pay the whole price or they want to take a shortcut or anything. It's just buyers who are doing it on a high level, doing a lot, they can go a lot further if they're stretching their capital. And seller finance deals allows institutional buyers or buyers that are doing this, within a company to not have to go out and get traditional financing, which that's all to one person, like I'm not going to go out and get qualified, go through all that red tape and then buy the house, right? And also too, there's a different, like what those terms look like are different, right? It's just convenient altogether for both sides, right? Because even the seller, and I might be getting ahead of myself, I don't know if the next slide is about
Yeah,
the seller.
we're going to talk about the seller. Just to recap, pros for the buyer, a faster way to close, the ability to purchase a home with less than perfect credit, right? So I might not have to, get pre-approved with the bank, and maybe I've got cash, but I don't have enough cash to cover it. And I just need a little bit of creative financing, right?
Yeah.
And a bridge to get the home. Maybe I own too many homes and I'm tied up and or I just want to leverage the bank's money. I mean, someone else's money, but not the traditional bank.
Yeah.
And then finally lower closing costs, I think, right?
And then also too, before we switch, is most of the audience, like, are you guys agents, licensed in production? Mostly everybody? All right, cool. I know not everybody.
We got a couple no's out there, that's okay.
I know not everybody, but like for a buyer, just to touch on that side, because a lot of this stuff helps out with you as an agent too. It's not just for investing, right? If you can structure a deal, especially in a tough market like we're in right now, then, and it gets tougher than what we're seeing right now, you can still make these deals happen. You got to get creative. And the reason why I want to like highlight that is because I recently helped out another agent with a deal. It was just a traditional deal, helping her buyer get that deal. And it wasn't that it was a multiple offer situation. It's just that the seller was a little bit unrealistic. So it helps with unrealistic sellers as well to make an unrealistic seller. They can be unrealistic, but we can make that version of their reality. We can blend that with the buyer's reality and make it make sense for the deal. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't always have to be an investment. It could be for somebody who wants to live in it as an owner occupant. They can pay less down payment. They can pay higher down payment. It don't really matter. It's just putting the deal together. And also it circumvents, like, to go into the seller portion, it circumvents the need for third-party approval, like appraisals and inspections and things like that. You still want to do all that stuff, right? But the roof is an issue a lot of times right now. Insurance, it's a big issue in Florida. Even before it became a huge issue that it is now, it was always a challenge, right? 30-year architectural roof. If it's 15 years, for the last few years, the insurance companies weren't putting new policies on it, so it was killing deals, right? So opportunities like that to help your seller sell with a roof that still works, it's still good. It's just that these insurance companies are not insuring it, and therefore the financing for it doesn't go through because the banks are looking at it as a security measure, and they're not going to go with the secondary market insurance, you know? So it helps out all of that, right? And it can be used for a bridge type of financing, right? It doesn't have to be long-term, right? So there's so many different ways you can like slice it up so you can get paid and you can take care of your families.
I love that. So the pros for the seller, Israel, we're going to have you talk a little bit about that. Obviously, we've got simple strategies it's a faster way to close, spread their tax liability over several years and command for a higher price. Before you grab the mic, I want to give you guys a little example of, I had a home in Avalon Park, and this was just luck of the draw. I was not as savvy, I would say, at the time, and I'm still not savvy. Dude, I call these guys and think their brains all the time. And if I have a deal, I'm like, look, I ain't as smart as you, but I got a deal. And I got an opportunity that I don't want to lose. What do you think? But at that time, I really didn't have so many resources. This was about maybe 8 years ago. And the reason I'm going to bring this story is because the people who actually bought that house that I bought are in this room. So the home Jenny and Rich bought from me back in, what was that? 2016 was a seller finance deal that it was a divorce situation. They were divorcing, they were slightly, not necessarily upside down, but there wasn't a lot of equity. It just didn't make sense if they were gonna go the traditional route. So we just basically, we did a trust. We did a land trust, and of course the bank, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. And I was able to, but it was a great rental property for me. So my cash to acquire that property, their mortgage was falling behind. I think they were behind 3 months. So now they add the stress on. I was like, I'll bring your mortgage current. We'll continue this, we'll honor the payments. We'll do a land trust. Where we don't, obviously, most of the time in your paperwork, in your mortgage will state that the lender can call the loan due. But in this particular case, if you don't file it in the courts, even though we did at least file appropriate documentation, the address became, the land trust was the name of the home, was the address of the home. And we kept that property for at least 3 years before we ended up selling it to someone that was renting it from us. And we're like, okay, we're ready, we got enough equity in there and we're ready to move on. And we helped a friend out, but there are so many reasons why seller financing in that particular situation, and that was before I was savvy enough, I should do more of those right now. And I think those are gonna come up, there's someone in the waiting room pieces. Those are some of the reasons why those scenarios happen. Hey, we're going through a divorce, our payments are behind, but they really don't have to short sell, and they don't have to foreclose, we can come in and save the day. Israel, let's talk a little bit more about these scenarios, what you're seeing out there, and in my particular opinion, right now, I think we're gonna start seeing a lot more assumable mortgages with people with great rates, and I'd be willing to give people a little bit more cash up front to keep that payment if they're not planning on buying in the near future. I'll assume your loan all day long. I'll let you talk on that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say I'm here for two reasons. To see Drew, that's number one. And so I don't get fined. Right? If I don't get here, Veronica will find me. I'm just messing. But yeah, I mean, listen, you have an even opportunity even with flippers out here. I mean, flippers are, having a hard time out here. You know what I mean? It's not easy for us as well. Especially if you bought a lot of inventory prior to July, prior to August.
Time out.
When-
That's a real statement he made, because a lot of people won't even confess that.
Absolutely.
Flippers.
Absolutely. I'm all, there's no sugarcoating here. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you have some opportunities, even with some fix and flip guys out there that you can approach on a creative financing deal. They have a house out there that's not selling, and they need to pay that mortgage. If they have a hard money lending instrument on that, you can approach that opportunity about, getting onto that. You know what I mean? There's also hard money opportunities out there that give you something that Drew spoke about, which was a bridge, but we come across those situations all the time. Divorce, absentee owners. My favorite is probate. You inherit a house and these kids basically don't know anything to do with that house. They more than likely live in another state. Those are my favorite deals, those probate deals. Not because you are looking to probably leech on somebody and take advantage of somebody. We have to look at ourselves as problem solvers, right? Because without you, there will be no other choice. Without Veronica in that situation at Avalon Park House, these guys would have a foreclosure on their credit. They would be out of the home and they won't be able to buy another home for another 7 years.
And that same family, we ended up representing them both on the purchase of their new properties once they were both able to rent for a little bit, kind of get settled, and then they called us back. They're like, thank you so much. You made it to where we didn't have to foreclose on our property. We didn't have to have negative payments on our credit. We were able to reestablish ourselves pretty quickly, and then they ended up buying 2 homes from us.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, opportunities right now, not only with regular traditional home sellers, but also with flippers. And because I know about this game, I now have become creative in actually selling my homes, right? Where, we actually, when we put properties on the market now, we put properties on the market not only for sale, but for rent as well. In every platform, Marketplace is a good platform for you to get this. Craigslist is also a good platform for you to get this. We're actually seller financing a home right now in Lecanto, Florida, that we weren't able to sell because it was, the market just changed on us. And we seller financed it to the buyer, to the renter who's going to become now a buyer, kind of like a
Home
home pass, divvy. We became our own divvy. You know what I mean? We became, not only did we become our own iBuyer, but we became our own divvy. So again, at the end of the day, there's many, many different ways to skin a cat. Many, many different ways to skin a cat. And I love the story that Drew just shared with the agent. I had a similar story like that with an agent that thought she was making money. There's nothing wrong with cashing a commission check, trust me, by no means. But that commission check, once you spend it, it's gone. It's not coming back. No matter how much you wish for that commission check to come back, it's not coming back. But at the end of the day, this particular agent had a property on the market, and it was hot. I think it was on the market for like $315, $320. I called the agent. I said, I'll pay you $377, $375 for that house. She had multiple offers on it. She thought she was big time, obviously, like most listing agents do. And then I started to talk to her. I said, listen, did you ever think about possibly negotiating with the bank directly, having your seller give you rights to negotiate with the bank directly for you to negotiate that short sale, get it under contract, and then sell it to me for $370? If the bank is only wanting to get $315, I'm willing to pay $375 for that property all day long. Where do you think the difference is going? Where do you think that $60,000 difference is going? To your pocket. So now instead of making $9,000, you made $60,000. So that's the difference with opening up your mind and getting creative.
I love that. All right, so for those who are listening online, and I'll just need to give a little insight of another example. This is just an example of an owner financed a property earlier this year. I owned free and clear. I received multiple offers. Some had traditional financing, others wanted me to be the lender. I chose an offer that was 20% above the best traditional finance option. The buyer put 20% down, and I agreed to finance the balance for 5 years at a 6% interest rate over 30 years. When you're talking to sellers, if you can actually educate them on what if you became the bank as well. Oftentimes they have no idea what that means. Drew, we purchased a property together, think we own it together. And can you give a little bit of an example of that scenario and how you enter that conversation? Say, hey, you're the bank, the seller becomes the bank. A lot of times you think the sellers need the money in that moment, but what you can teach them is how they can build wealth over time as well, while you are now the buyer.
Yeah, absolutely. So we own 3 units together.
Speak up. You're the big guy, don't speak up. Let's go.
We own 3 units together. And,
So are we married in that property?
it's complicated.
Okay. So is marriage.
What's Tony? But yeah, so that was a seller, that's a hybrid deal, right? So we're using the term seller financing, but we're kind of using it loosely, like it breaks down even on a granular level, these different types of strategies. Where Vera was talking about the house that she talked about doing the land contract and everything on. That was because she said land contract, lets me know that it was more likely a loan, underlying loan.
Yeah,
So
there was an existing loan,
So she bought it subject to the existing mortgage, right?
which we're gonna talk about subject to in a little bit.
Perfect. And there's a difference. When we get on that topic, I'll talk about it, but there's a difference between that and assumable loans, right? A big difference that we want to make sure we're not loosely using that word interchangeably, right? Because it's all about expectation. You want to set the right expectation with the seller, because there's always that third party person who's going to come and try to kill the deal with all their infinite wisdom, right? So for that deal, yeah, we just basically it's not that we want to go out and we're just figuring out how to take the deal down, right? How to take the deal down and make it the most profitable situation for us and for the seller as well. And that goes without saying, right? Because in order for it to happen, the seller has to be happy first, right? It has to meet their needs. And for this particular guy, $500,000 property, his need, he was getting married, right? And it's funny, I'll tell you the punchline after this, but when I say married, a lot of you guys already know where this is gonna go, but he was getting married, right? And he wanted high crazy down payment, blah, blah, blah. We talked him down to a lower down payment. So it's a hybrid deal, subject to the existing mortgage underneath, right? Down payment to the seller, he's seller financing his equity, right? So he ended up getting, punchline to it, he ended up getting scammed. He wasn't getting married. It was some lady over in California that, this is happening right now, but.
He got catfished?
Nah, I mean, she may look the way she looked, but she scammed the hell out of him, so. She got him for like 300K, you know? Yeah, so and he's an old man, he's like 70, sad story. We have a testimony with that guy.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so sad story, right? But he's living that right now. But don't really matter. I just want to throw that in there. But for us, it was finding his need and then meeting it, right? Negotiating these things, I don't want to get like too ahead or off track, but I mean, there's a whole lot of things I could talk about. The one I want to like try to relate everything to being an agent, right? Because my whole niche or purpose, I guess, is really, since I'm licensed as well, is to merge, like bring investor mindset to licensed activity. Because you don't have to go get a license to be actually, it's probably worse. You go try to get a license to become an investor. It's gonna take you the scenic route, right? You want to get straight to it, pay the tolls, get straight to it, right? I became an investor first, started off as a fix and flipper, then I got my license, right? License, you having your license, not a necessity, but if you have it, it's a benefit because that's an extra tool you can use to your investor tool belt. Or if you're an investor, getting a license could be okay, but honestly, it's still not necessary because you can leverage other people's license, right? We all work and do deals together. This guy, we've done deals together. When we were talking about a deal that Vero and I did together, So, the opportunities are endless is really what I'm trying to say. I hope I answered the question when you wanted me to talk about.
No, yeah, no, and again, we're gonna have a couple more examples and we're gonna get through some of these definitions. Actually, I'm glad you said subject to, because we're gonna get right up to it. In the previous example of the scenario where obviously the person created a win-win situation where they chose the offer that was 20%, sorry, 20% above the traditional finance, and the buyer put 20% down and they agreed to do it. The win-win here is obviously they had an attorney draft it up, title companies. There's a lot of title companies that are investor friendly. If you need any recommendations as to who those title companies are that we work with, we'll be happy to give them to you. But either you draft it with an attorney, and these guys obviously have their team that they specialize with, and we have our team. Sometimes obviously attorneys can make things complicated, but we want to work with investor friendly attorneys as well that understand the title companies that are
That was the deal that you did? You sold the deal like that, 20%?
no, that's just an example of,
Okay, I was gonna say, that's a good deal for the seller.
yeah, that's a great deal for the seller.
Not so much for the buyer unless they're gonna live in it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's exactly that, if I'm going to live in it, because I can't establish homeownership without that owner financing. And I've had many people that we've talked to, like, hey, this is an owner finance deal because I couldn't qualify. And this is people who, let's say they got, I don't know, man, there's just many different scenarios. They got that mattress money, you know, they got, if you guys don't know what mattress money is, like, you can't source your funds, but they still need a roof to live over their head. You know, doesn't mean they're bad people, they just might not do activities that might like be looked at very well on paper. So, but they still need a roof to live. So we just, you know, gotta help them out. Strippers need houses too, you know? But anyway.
I think the tenant in the back unit is a stripper.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, guys, it's just reality. These are people, and people have complicated lives, and sometimes they have to find alternative ways. So I just want to expand your mind. If you ask better questions and they trust you, they'll really tell you the truth. Look, man, I want to buy a home, but I can't because my credit's shot, but I got money. All right, well, let's try to find you. I look at owner finance deals all the time. I'll search specifically seller financing. And I bought a couple properties in Puerto Rico, and I'm buying, my goal is to buy 10 more this year. The owner financing deals there are like in abundance. So I'll share that with you guys later. I've been talking to Israel about that. All right, so what is subject to? All right, get into your subject here, Drew. You're the man on this. Buying a home subject to means buying a home subject to the existing mortgage. Essentially, the buyer assumes the current mortgage payment in exchange for the deed of the house. Drew, take the floor.
So, you guys familiar with subject to?
Raise your hand if you're familiar with subject to. All right, let's pass you the mic and you guys tell us what subject to is.
I wasn't trying to set you guys up.
No, I want them to educate their peers. Who wants to talk about subject to? Who feels passionate about it and knows about it? All right, then.
See, I wasn't gonna put you guys on the spot. I just wanted to see.
This is the interactive part.
Yeah.
I want scenarios if you have an opportunity to work with someone in subject to, because your scenarios matter too. Not putting you on the spot in a bad way. I want to give you the mic because you guys are leaders. Go ahead.
So the important thing about subject to is it's perfectly legal, right? Before the closing disclosure came out with the new Dodd-Frank requirements and all that, TILA, RESPA, and all that good stuff, and they made the new closing disclosure. There was just a HUD. There still is a HUD for cash deals, right? But on that HUD, which is from the Urban Housing and Development, whatever acronym stands for, legit is what I'm trying to say. It's legit, right? So in this, the 500 series block in there, it has a line for mortgages taken subject to, right? Super legit. Yeah, mortgages taken subject to. That's gonna be like in my mouth.
Yeah, it's more for our Zoom people.
Yeah,
who are-
I was prepared for this.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So, subject, so yeah, it's a perfectly legal and normal transaction, right?
So if we were to break this down for a 6-year-old, how would a subject to look like? What would it look like?
What it would look like, so you agree on the purchase price, just like normal, right? If there's no equity in the house, or if there's very little equity to where it makes sense to just make that the down payment, let's say 20K or something, 10K, whatever. One side note, the reason why this could be beneficial for your leads that don't have any equity is because if they were to sell on the market, that spread between what they owe, the spread between what they owe is not their equity, right? for intensive, for all intents and purposes, right? It's the equity is what they would get after the sale, right? After fees and commissions are taken out. So that's an important distinction to make when you're trying to structure these deals to compare apples to apples and structure a deal that's 100% legit for them, but profitable for us as well, right? So there's times where you can sweeten the pot for them. They're never going to get any money. Sometimes they'll have to strike a check to at closing to sell, right? So if you agree to give them 10K down or pay them that spread or equity, right? And they're out of the deal at that point. The only thing that's attached to them is the name being on the mortgage, right? So take it a step further, what makes it a hybrid deal is that they have more equity, right? To where it wouldn't make sense to pay, $200,000 down, right? Nobody wants to be in it for that big of or that amount of money unless they're buying like a huge multi-million-dollar house or something that makes sense, right? They're gonna live in it. So that would be a hybrid deal. So either one of those deals, the way it looks on paper is you have your purchase price, just like your closing statement, which typically will be on the HUD, right? In this case, you'll have that, and it'll have all the line items on there appropriately, and that mortgage that's in place will be on there as well, right? And that will go to the towards the balance and all the numbers and how that pans out, right? Does that part make sense? Cool. Any questions on that part? All right. So the next step, right? There's once you close, right? There's other things like insurance and all that stuff that gets taken into account. They release the rights and benefits to the insurance policy and all that stuff. Whenever you get to that point, yeah, just hit one of us up. We'll help you out. It's I don't want to get too granular on it because it's like it'd be way too much. So point is, when that deal is done, that's it, right? You own the house. Everything is normal. Nothing's different, right? You're paying the way you make the payments, the way you agree to make the payments, the way we do it, we hire a servicing company, just like the banks do it, right? So a servicing company we make that one payment to the servicing company and they disperse the payments, right? If it's one going to the seller, it's one going to the actual bank, the underlying mortgage, all that stuff gets taken care of and there's documentation of it, right? Just like any servicing company, all banks do it. That's peace of mind for the seller, right? Because they can go and look at everything that's happening with it, right? They can stay on top of it if they so choose to, right? Taking a step further, the way it looks like to the bank, banks don't give a shit. Banks don't care. They just want their money, right? It costs money to, oh, I'm not supposed to curse.
It's okay.
Oh, snap.
It's okay.
Well,
You said SHIT.
yeah, everybody does it every day, hopefully, right? So look, it's nothing crazy, right? So the banks they want to get paid, right? The tactic with like Vero mentioned about buying in a land trust, it's a common tactic in Florida, only in Florida, that tactic is being used. There's a lot of different trains of thoughts on that, right? I subscribe to the belief that it's not necessary, right? And I also subscribe to the belief that it's a business that was founded here in Florida. So the people who promote it, they get monetary, compensation from you guys doing those land trusts. Not that it's a bad thing. They should get compensation for it, right? But is it necessary? Not always, right? Sometimes you might want to do it, right? If you're trying to buy the property in the middle of a loan mod, not the greatest idea to do, right? Because they're in their file looking at it. Definitely not the greatest. Maybe you can get away with it with the land trust, right? If you're trying to buy the property and the underlying lender is a small local bank where there's only a handful of branches and they're local and organic to a certain area in Florida, that's more than likely you're going to get called. They're going to call that loan due, right? If they call the loan due, it ain't scary. I had a due on sale clause calling me. It's not scary at all, right? It literally, it doesn't happen overnight, right? You don't have to show or bring up the money overnight. It's literally, they have to go through the foreclosure process still, right? So it's going to be a long, arduous process for them, right? And we can fight back if needed, right? That due on sale clause is just protection.
Yeah.
Banks will stack up all the protection on their side. That doesn't mean everything is legal.
And
right?
can we say that as long as they're getting paid, usually you're not gonna have a called due. And again, just to kind of summarize, it's like, what are some of the scenarios? Maybe, again, they're just not current on their mortgage, they can't afford, they lost their job. Or they need to move and there's just no equity, or just they didn't have the proper representation. There's so many reasons why someone would accept a subject to purchase
They're
option.
gonna make more money,
Yeah,
hands down.
and oftentimes you're not having to pay that much more either. You just, again, finding their pain points and not assuming that the traditional route is the only route, or you know, assumable is the only route.
Absolutely, it's getting the deal done, no matter what, right, for your buyer or for yourself. And the thing is, they're definitely not overpaying, right, because it depends on what we can do with the property. We can make a profit on the spread between the rent, the monthly rent, and then the what we're on the hook for as far as the PITI payments, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and whatever HOA or other fees are on there. If we can make money on that, that's where the value of that deal is at for us, right? If it was $1 million house, if it was a $500,000 house and we paid $1 million, it could still work, right? Pay $1 a day, right? Being facetious to like explain the point, but if you pay $1 a day in the market rent is $1,000, you're crushing it, right? I would do that deal all day, right? You have to unlock your mind and get out of the matrix in order to see the path to the bank on that deal.
Okay, I've got a question back here. Let's get you on the mic. Hold on. For our guests who are on Zoom. And we will have a chance at the end to network a little bit and ask questions, but definitely want to get it while it's on your mind. Can you speak up a little bit, Gene, for me?
Yeah, my name is Gene.
Perfect.
You gotta put it all the way in your mouth, bro.
Speak up.
I'm still trying to do it. Pause.
Is it on? Do we know? So we know the green button's on? Okay.
It's on, you just have a louder voice in your.
Okay.
You're used to this. You're not.
So you have to, let's say, the owner is behind in like 3-4 months, right? And to bring the property to current, you need at least, let's say, $30,000 to bring it to current. So where you get that money from? Do you get all money? Or you just, I don't know, do the thing or?
Yeah, so obviously you're asking that question because if everybody, I hope everybody heard it, he's saying basically if there is like ridiculous amount in arrears, right? Any amount, like 30K or plus or whatever in arrears, how do you get that deal done? Because that obviously you need to bring the loan current if you're gonna take it subject to, right? So good question. Where you get that money is the same place you get any other money for deals or anything. You pull it from your pocket if you wanna go that route. If you don't want to, or you don't have the money, even if you have it, I suggest not doing that, right? Because if you want to do a lot of these, leverage other people's money, right? Give other people an opportunity to make money on this deal, right? Some people don't, have the wherewithal or even the time or whatever, or even interest in doing these deals, but they can be a contributor to these deals and we can all make money together.
Or they don't have enough to do the spread on their own, and
Themselves.
they need to do it with someone else. So money's out there.
Yeah, and people will like one of us will partner on you, all three of us, one of us, out of the three will partner on you in any deal. That's a deal. You just bring it to us and we'll make it a deal and turn it into that, right? So that's where you get the money. Just hit one of us up. Hard money, no, because hard money, not usually, right? Depends on your strategy, right? Because if you're think about it, that first position, or there's already a first position lien. If you're gonna go get hard money, they want to be in a first position lien, right? So that's gonna be tough. But Henry over here is rich. He has a lot of money, so you can ask him, right? Hey, you got $30 to lend on this, right? How much you want in return? They'd be like,
And it's private money, right? There's private
Right,
money out there where
Right.
someone's sitting on their 401k money and they could borrow against that. Or let's just say someone's saying, like I said, I have a little bit, but I don't have enough. But I'm looking for a deal to get a return on my money. So like, or I could borrow against my stock. There's different ways for you. You just, like I said, you get the deal, then you gotta bring the deal to people that have a little bit of money or maybe know people who have money. Somebody has money.
yeah.
So partnership is better than getting the hard money.
Partnership is key because I'm a big believer in 100% of zero is zero.
Always.
I'd rather make something than nothing. I built my wealth making a lot. So if you could listen, all three of us here, if we can't help you, we know someone who can help you. You just bring a good enough deal. But the key here is you won't always get a yes because the deal's gotta make sense.
Yeah.
But you'll get more yeses if you basically bring deals to people who know how to make deals together. And they might protect you like, man, this isn't a good deal. Drew will be the first one to tell you,
100%.
nah, I'm staying away from this one, but someone else might want it.
It was actually how you did like that, because they did the current, we need like $30,000. And awards gonna get like a hard money, and we have to pay that hard money back after a year. Is that what I'm saying?
What, is this going on right now? This deal?
No, it passed.
Oh, pass?
So
They got foreclosed on?
How much do wholesaling then did the subject? to?
Yo, hit me up for those deals. I can do all day, because here's the thing. Depending on purchase price and all that, numbers have to make sense, right? I can buy deals that other people can't buy because of the tools I have in my tool belt. For deals like that, right? Deals with higher down payments, right? Those are unattractive for creative investors, right? Every creative investor, the reason why they're creative, they want to go into it, you know, for next to nothing, you know, a lot of times, which gets annoying. But there's ways you can do it, right? It doesn't always have to be next to nothing. I'm doing a deal right now in Bartow, Florida, for it's a $170,000 deal, right? I'm paying 50% down, 85K. Nobody does that deal, right? I'm being dramatic by saying nobody. Of course, there's always a few people, right? But most people are not going to do that deal, right? I'm doing that deal because I can go borrow the funds, right? I got a long list of private lenders by now. I can borrow the funds. I can do that deal, buy that deal from the seller, right? I structured the rest of the his equity on a silent second, or in this case, it'll be a silent third, because I asked him to subordinate his position. So I can bring my lender in and give him the more preferable position, right? So his money is secure and protected. Now, in order to get out of that deal, I'm going to seller finance. So what Israel was talking about, how they become their own divvy pretty much. We're doing the same thing, right? Great minds think alike. There's a huge opportunity out there for sellers. We're sellers, you know, so it definitely works for your sellers. They're going to make more money if they sell it, especially in this market. In any market, they'll make more money, but especially in this market, they're going to make more money because sorry, I almost said that S word again. Their house is sitting right on the market, so they're not making any money, right? So the way I structured this deal, I'll seller finance. I'm going to seller finance somebody, getting the house at 170, selling it for 215, right? Just going to put some lipstick on it and make it look pretty. I haven't seen it yet, so I got to go finalize all these numbers. But the play on this is to bring that, 50% down, bring that 85 down, seller finance the deal, offer it for seller financing, get a buyer in there, right? We qualify our buyers through an underwriter, right? That we outsource, right? We have a legit, we make qualified mortgages, right? We'll originate qualified mortgages, right? The difference between qualified mortgage and these other mortgages from hard money lenders is the terms, right? The shark-like terms on them, not necessarily interest rate, but prepayment penalties or interest only, those type of things make it non-qualifying, right? So we make qualified mortgages for a play like this because we want to make a great paper stack, right? That banks make, and banks sell that paper on the secondary market. We do that as well, right? So we originate this loan at anywhere from 9.5% to 10.5% right now, right? Because that's what note buyers want to pay. We'll do that deal. Whether it's hard money that we're borrowing or any other type of money, right? We have to pay it back because it's a short note. We'll do that deal. We'll get them in there. We'll take a down payment. I'm usually looking for about 10% down, right? Down payment. I'll break the note. I'll make two notes, right? A first and a second. The first position note is going to be beefy enough and now it's going to be for 210 minus in this sense, I'm getting 20K down, right? So we're asking for 20K down. So it's going to make sense. You have to just divvy up the numbers. Usually it's 20% I'm holding back, right? That second note, I'll tell you about doing that in a second. But the first note, I'm going to sell that note to a note buyer. Typically here in Florida, if your paper is stacked correctly, you'll get about 80 cents on the dollar, right? So it has to be high enough for me to take that real money out of this monopoly money, take the real money I get, pay out the underlying debt, right? Boom, clear it out of that. No liability in the deal. Now there's a first position lien holder on it. I have a small second. Seller's already out of it. I have a small second that I'm going to be getting cash flow on at 10% for 30 years, amortized, right? If you know how the amortization schedule works, that's how the banks run the world, right? They make money, they know what they're doing, right? That's why I model myself after them. Go downtown or any place in this country, right? The tallest buildings have banks' names on it, they're doing something right, right? So with that strategy, I can do a deal like that or unrealistic deal, that someone has that they can't sell it to even a wholesaler or not wholesaler, they can't sell it to a fix and flipper. The numbers don't make sense. I can make it make sense. So if you guys got deals like that, hit me up. We'll talk it through it. I'll show you how to do it, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and of course, this is a lot to digest for people, maybe being like, oh my. This is why you need experts like this on your team to run deals with. Israel's got a couple examples. Do we have a question over here, but we'll get to Stephen, we'll get to you in a second.
Along with the answer.
To give you another idea of what your situation right there, you could have also did an ovation giveaway. You could have, if you didn't have those funds, you could have did an ovation depending on where the equity is and all that things like Drew is also really good at that. You could have did an ovation deal, which is basically essentially another fancy word for saying what a net listing is basically for a realtor. But at the end of the day, you can always find that money. And to piggyback off of what Drew was saying with, the 80% and the underlying numbers and things like that, that's really where the banks get their money. That's where hard money lenders get their business from. Hard money lenders don't have money. Not all of them do. What they do, they outsource other people, other private money guys that have money that don't know what to do with it. They want to park it somewhere. So a hard money lender like a Lima One Capital, like a Do Hard Money, like any one of these bigger institutions out there, they go and they find these accredited investors and they say, hey, if you want to invest 100 grand, I'll give you 7-8% on that money, 5% on that money. Anybody's going to be happy because what is the bank giving them? 0.0025%, right? So anybody's going to be happy making 5-6% on their money. And then what does a Lima One Capital, a hard money lender does at the end? Basically what Drew just said, they lend it to us for double that, 10, 11, 12%, whatever the case may be. And if it's your first flip or your first deal, you're definitely going to pay premium on that money until you start to get more, more experience and things like that. You know what I mean? So don't get enamored with the big names and things like that. You can do this too. It's not rocket science. They just found the math because the math don't lie. They found the math. They know what the numbers are working with, and they just created that system themselves.
So I want to go back to subject to briefly, which is the deal that I had talked to you guys earlier about, which is what obviously we were just obviously giving you multiple scenarios. You had a question, which was a great question. Going back to on this slide, it says mitigating risk. A buyer can mitigate the risk by forming a trust. If ever you need a land trust that, because you're going to run into sellers that are going to be extremely, some are like open to creativity and others are like, I'm very by the book. I need to make sure I'm protected. And this talks about one of the mitigating the risk is forming that trust that matches the seller's property name, or what I did again was the property addresses. You buy your properties in your LLC. You buy them in a LLC. I have different properties that I bought in the LLC, and I like to put them in the name of the address of the property. When I had time to do it for subject, for this type of scenario, which was the subject to. All right, so moving right along, this is another example. Seller wants $50,000 cash equity, which Drew just gave us a couple examples. My plan was to renovate the house and list it 2 months later. So instead of having to get a hard money loan to close the deal, I used an underlying debt, which had a low interest rate and it was 10 years instead of amortization. These are just, again, different scenarios. And like I said, you guys will get these slide decks. This is great on paper, but no scenario is that clean. This is why I say, who do you have right now that you could call if you run into a deal and you get the opportunity to do creative financing? Do you have the institutional lenders? Do you have the experts in creative financing? Can I get a show of hands that right now, if you got a deal today, you can lock that deal up in the next 24 to 72 hours?
Yeah, everybody should raise their hand because you can call one of us.
So now you do. Now what we want you to do is if you have a deal, you have a true team here that can help you pair the right partner. And it may not be us, like we know people. So just stay open-minded to know that we're not just saying like, bring us the deal. We'll connect you to good people who might be able to help you. Okay, so.
If it's in Florida, I'm that guy.
All right, so we're gonna run through this really quickly. Call me first because I'm a taxman. No, I'm just joking. We're gonna run through this real quick. What is a lease option? Real quick, obviously lease options are pretty straightforward to understand. It's pretty much a rent to own program.
Real quick, lease options are endless, right? The problem with saying lease option is that people bunch it together. It's actually a lease with an option to buy, right? That's important for when you want to structure those deals so you don't get in trouble when things don't go, when Murphy's Law hits, right? So it's a lease with an option to buy, right? Not just a lease option, not one document. If you ever see it on one document, run away or restructure it.
Now, a lease option is different than rent to own. And a lot of times people like, 'cause I think rent to owns are just a glorified lease that puts the tenant at risk and they believe that they're the homeowner, but one default, they lose it all.
And that's what I mean.
Right, so lease option, one of the things that you said earlier, you could be the divvy or you could be the whole partner. What I like about, for the realtors in the room, if you frown upon renters, now I'm gonna help you sell more real estate real quick. I'm gonna go that route real quick. For the realtors in the room, how many of you guys, oh, the leads suck, I got a renter? Don't lie to me. Y'all know when you see a rental, you're like, it's a renter, right? Dude, there are so many, I'm like, send them all to me right now. Because I'm gonna pair them with a seller who's willing to put their house on the market as a renter. And I'll bring divvy, home partner, landis, trio in the mix, and you can get your full 3 commission, 2 to 3% commission upfront, just by placing that buyer in a lease option with them. And they have an option to buy it in 5 years, if not, or maybe you pair them with someone like Israel, if I bring you a buyer, you will pay me a commission,
Absolutely, all day long.
right? So just food for thought. I know you want to say something.
Not only that, guys, but open up your minds to also rent arbitrage, right? With Airbnb. I had a client that, I sold him an Airbnb home. He relied on my expertise because what I do, he renovated the property. I mean, made it look like this damn property was in freaking Italy. And he had a guy, an investor that came to him and said, hey, I'm willing to pay you $5,600 a month for this property. Now, if he put a regular tenant in there, he was only getting about $2,900 for this property. He was willing to, this guy was so adamant and so, confident about the Airbnb numbers over there. He said, I'll give you $5,600. And this guy that was gonna rent arbitrage this property, if I didn't school my client the right way, he was gonna make 10 grand. So think about it. My client was standing to be making somewhere in the neighborhood of $68,000 to $72,000 a year, just sitting back, getting that check and collecting, and his rent is only about $300 or $2,400 a month. He's doubling his money. You know what I mean? So not only actually the option gives you a time to perform, right? But you can also open up your mind and say, hey, if you're an Airbnb client, or you yourself want to be an Airbnb client, you can put that property under a lease and also start to rent it out Airbnb if the city permits it.
Yeah, options give you control. Options or a lease option is a entry strategy, right? It's an acquisition strategy, and it's also a disposition strategy as well, right? So when I'm not the infinite, person with all knowledge, right? I don't know everything, right? I just have my experience and the way I perceive things and understand it in my head. So to what Vero was saying about rent to own, to me, rent to own is just a marketing term.
Yep.
Right, to attract those type of the tenant buyer, right? But ultimately, what determines whether I do a lease option or not, I have active lease option right now, or rent to own, right? They're paying $3,000 a month in an area over Winter Park where the rent is 24, 26, pushing it maybe, right? But they're paying more. The challenge, not really a challenge, but the thing to consider with lease option, it's an option payment, right? It's not, you don't want it to be confused with a down payment, right? Because it infers ownership, right? If things go south, it ends up in court because you're trying to evict them. This is another reason why you want to have paperwork separate, a lease with an option to buy. 2 different paperwork, right? Make that lease as normal as possible, right? You can stack all these cool things inside of your agreement you want, but is it enforceable in court, right? One side of the agreements don't do well in court, right? I've been to court, I've been sued, and all that, right? So I'm not scared to all those things. But I also have knowledge from coming from those experiences, right? So everything you do is to cover your own butt, because these tenants is happy, or these tenant buyers, whoever you're dealing with, is happy as they want to be when you're solving their problem and you got the cape and the mask on, right? But later on, when they're no longer in that, that vibrational frequency, right? They're not coming from that same place. things are, I won't say the S word again, things are different, right? Things change, and that's what you want to protect for, so you always want to have all your paperwork and plus.
So in that lease option, just so the audience knows, how do you protect yourself fully? Like who pays for the
1,000.
insurance?
Great
Who
question.
pays for the insurance? Who pays for all of that?
This guy got all the questions. And he set me up to say it, so, appreciate it. Yes, the lease, make the lease as vanilla as possible, right? Normal, I say vanilla to be normal, regular, right? Because, and I mean, like, when I say regular, don't put in there that the tenant is gonna be responsible for everything, right? Do it the normal way a regular lease would go. However, here's the trick, you have your option paperwork. The option paperwork, you write the appropriate language on there, right? That is gonna trump, the lease agreement. So if they default on the lease agreement, to answer the question, you take that to court and that gets challenged, there's nothing against the statute, the tenant landlord laws in there, right? And this action in court wasn't based on the option, defaulting on the option, right? No problem with for ownership and all that stuff. I'm not saying there's not gonna be a problem, but you're less likely to have that come up, right? That's the best thing you do to mitigate your risks, right? And then also consult with a lawyer.
All right, so we're feeling good about lease options, you know who to call.
And then also too, one thing on options, since this is creative financing, it doesn't end at leases with options to buy. And this is about control without ownership, right? A lot of rich people use that catchphrase, control everything, own nothing, right?
Yes.
So options give you that control. You can get as creative with an option as you want, right? If you got a seller that's a little hard-headed on his price, but let's say he's gonna be around for a while, right? Whatever, like meaning like he's not gonna die, in 2 years from now, he's just an old guy. It's really more about the mindset, right? I've seen people, I haven't done this myself, right? Because I'm more of the sub-2 route and all that stuff, but I've seen people structure deals where they say they're selling for 500K, right? It's too high or whatever case, the people coming want to pay a lower amount, right? Or these really great buyers want it, they only have 300,000. Most of the time that conversation is never going to happen because it's so far apart. But if you have a brave realtor who even opens that dialogue with the listing agent because it's been on the market for however long, one of the cool structures with options you can do is you can agree to sell it at that price as long as they give you the option to repurchase at that same price, right? The reason why you would do that and why it would make sense is because that 300,000, or let's say it's $300,000 sell price. That $300,000 sell price is the cap. In an appreciating market, right, or in the cycles as we always see, when this thing comes around, they say people sell within 7 to 10 years, traditionally, whatever, right? 7 to 10 years comes up. Do you think that property is going to be lower than 300,000 or higher, right? Traditionally higher, right? You can kind of bet. If it's higher, all that equity, you're gaining all that appreciation, right? And you can buy that property for 300,000, right? If they go to sell it, you can buy it for 300,000. What they're gaining is they're getting into the property, right? They didn't have all the money to pay it. They're getting into the property. The equity they're gaining is through their pay down of the debt. So from 300,000 to the time that they sell, how they paid that debt down on the amortization schedule, they reap that benefit, right? But you get the upside. Just another outside the box way of structuring these deals, right?
Yep.
One more thing that has to do with real estate agents, right? Has anybody ever heard of MV Realty? MV Realty, right? So MV Realty, I'm sure there's other organizations, but they're going around getting 40-year listing agreements signed, right? So what that is pretty much an option to list the property if they're going to list, right? 40 years, within the next 40 years. If they sell with somebody else, since they're recording everything, with these options, you want to record it, right? You put a memorandum of interest on the property. That way, when somebody goes to sell it, they can, the title company will call them, right? They'll trigger it, yep, the title company will call the person and say, hey, she's smiling, she likes this. You like this idea?
Yeah, we do.
Like, I know this, you tell them stop talking now. Yeah, so they did it. So it works, right? And they go around, the consideration they give up front is they'll give like $700, right, sometimes. And remember, I said things change when the vibrational frequency of that seller changes, like things change, right? So sellers, I've tried to buy properties off sellers all like a few times, and they had this agreement. They're like, oh, they didn't give me any money. I didn't sign anything. Yeah, you did. It's right here with your signature and everything, right? They have all their ducks in a row. It's a crazy strategy, borderline unethical. Some people can argue, but damn, it's smart, right? It's smart as hell, for real. It's ironclad.
I love it. I don't know how I'm gonna
Look,
promote
Beto
that,
she wants to implement it now for 15.
but I already said, I gotta look into it. No, but of course, these are again, very, very important things for you to be aware of so that you can properly educate the people who look at you as a trusted advisor. And that's the ultimate goal, right? Is for you to be that source. And I think just so many agents just think, oh, I'm just gonna unlock a home, show a home. And that's really so entry level in our industry. All right, so as we wrap up, because we got a couple more things and I want to get to some of the questions. Again, you guys will get the slide for all of this. I'm not gonna go through the examples because Drew and them just gave us so many great examples, but I do have a question in regards to luxury. I feel like there's gonna be a lot more opportunity
Oh, man.
for in the luxury market right now. I'm gonna let you guys, what's your take on, you know, currently the market that we're in with the interest rates and the opportunities for these lease options subject to in the luxury market? Anyway, we'll let Israel take this one.
I'm doing a flip right now in Merritt Island. That's a luxury flip. We are hopefully gonna sell it for 1.5, but it's opening up my mind to kind of like what Drew was saying, the 1% rule, right? And on a rental, you want to utilize that 1% rule. Basically, if that whatever you pay for that property, the rent should bring you back 1%. And that's a good deal, or more, right? But I think the luxury market is really where it's at next, to be honest with you. It's never, I don't think the luxury market is really going to take a hit, right? Because you're dealing with a lot more affluent buyers, a lot of high net worth buyers, right? They might want to negotiate and things like that, but a lot of those guys can probably close faster, okay? It's not much emotionality involved in it. And you can really do a lot of things with that particular, with the particular property, right? What just happened, major sports event just recently in our country, which is what? The Super Bowl.
Right.
It happened in Arizona. How many landlords in Arizona got fat off the Super Bowl?
Yep.
Just, they probably paid their expenses in 1 year off the Super Bowl, just off that time, right? And I believe it was a lot due to luxury opportunities, luxury rentals. Don't be scared of them. At the end of the day, it's just a number. It's just a number for that particular property to acquire it. But when you sell, if you decide to fix and flip, which is my expertise, when you fix and flip them, it's a bigger check, way bigger check.
And I think the rental arbitrage in the luxury market is also something that, as I was just in St. Pete looking at some of the properties, I was like, I'm always assessing where high rental markets in the vacation market. I'll take I would have no problem renting a luxury property at a higher market if I know it's a high demand area for luxury sports teams and like
Absolutely.
they've got hockey teams, they've got venues. Saw one for 9,500. I was like, I could rent this out for $2,000 a night, a weekend, and not including what we would do during the week, because there's no inventory for rentals. So I'm like, so rental arbitrage together with the luxury market, that's how I actually bought one of my properties. And I negotiated to have all full rights of the property for 6 months before I ended up closing on the property. And I basically was making a profit before I even owned the property.
Absolutely.
Which property that is.
So,
So.
and then the one thing that I think hasn't really been highlighted that they're saying, so all that is true and good, but just like with any market or any class of real estate, you don't force it in like a specific market, right? You don't force it. You find the market that where those properties are selling.
Yep.
Right. You might not do that, here necessarily. He's out in Merritt Island with it, right? But you're looking at the opportunity around. So you're looking at comps, you're doing your research. You're not just saying, I feel this. You're not feeling or thinking anything, right?
Yeah, you look at like for Airbnbs, for me, I look at AirDNA. I'm looking at how can I measure truly what's happening around there, so I can make an informed decision.
And AirDNA, in case anybody doesn't know out there, is like the Zillow for Airbnb. You go get your research from AirDNA, what is actually rented on a nightly basis from there. you know, and then you go make your decision and you do your research like Drew was saying.
And making sure that you know that peak season, that there's actually, I forgot which program it is, they use that when there is a Super Bowl or when there is a spike in spring break and things, now you can increase your rental rate for that weekend because of the demand.
Absolutely.
So making sure you have all those tools and resources, and we'll have some more experts on short-term rentals in the next couple of months.
And I'll go a step further real quick, you know, just, you know, Veronica was talking about our coaching program. We do have a coaching program. I'm not gonna plug you to that, but just to give you an idea of the way my mind and Drew minds and Veronica's mind works, right? So we started also a staging business. So my wife, Maylene, you know, that's her happy place. All she wants to do is design, right? If I can plug her and take her out of selling homes and just let her be in the house all day and design, she'll be a happy woman, right? But we started staging our properties now, all of them, with our own money, because we were staging and had a partnership with a staging company out there, and we were basically averaging anywhere from $2,700 to $3,500 on profit. We could probably stage a whole house with that kind of money, maybe a little bit more. But here's the golden tip, and I want you to write this down. When we put our properties on the market now, depending on where they are, now we Airbnb them.
Yep.
Now we Airbnb them, right? Like, let's say it goes on the contract, we Airbnb that thing for the entire time frame it's on the freaking market. The only time it's not freaking Airbnb or on the market, it's inspection time. That's it. Think about that.
Yeah.
So that's what, the agent, that you guys list of agents, I'll partner up with investors to do that as well. If the property's listed for like 90 days, they want to sell, that'll be the best option.
Absolutely. That's a great point. You can actually reach out to these agents. I didn't even think about that, but start prospecting to these agents. Like some of these wholesalers prospect me, they call me every day, right? And I prospect to other agents as well. And let them know, hey, listen, let's set up, you know, some sort of let's help each other out. Let me help your seller out. Help me out. Let's put up some documents in place that are legal, like Drew was saying. Consult your attorney and make sure you protect yourself. But that's also an opportunity to go out there and give yourself some extra money and the seller some extra money while that property is being sold, especially if that property is vacant.
Love it. Love it. All right, so I want to definitely get to the questions. Obviously, you guys, again, like I said, you'll have these slides. I don't want to go one by one. I love scenarios. Do you guys prefer scenarios or slides? Okay, good. Can we go back to Airbnb real quick? Because I'm really passionate about Airbnb. I own multiple Airbnbs. I cash flow very well on them. Drew actually sold me one that was a duplex.
Wow.
It's right across from the hospital and it's downtown. We take one side and we do Airbnb, and the other side we use it for nursing, nurse contracts, because it's right by the airport. I mean, the hospital, and those contracts are usually 90 days to 6 months at a time, usually 90 days. And we're able to to rent it for top dollar. These people can pay. They're not gonna be here long. They don't bring their families. Every once in a while they do bring their families, but it's such a unique strategy. One of the things that I do, going back to what Israel said, is you might not be able to do everything, but you can build a team that does everything for you. I have properties here in Orlando and I have properties in Puerto Rico. My property manager, she manages all my properties from here. And now I'm forming a business with her for her to help manage other people's property management, Airbnbs, right? Because I'm the driver of I'm a lead dealer. You know, I deal leads. That's what I do. So then what happens is, I get a lot of people who want to break into Airbnb, but they don't know how to become a super host. I'm a super host on every single one of my properties. And people are like, how do you manage it? I was like, I don't. I just have someone on staff that is my property manager for all my Airbnbs. And now what we actually did is I now have a cleaner on staff. My cleaners are full-time employees of mine. So that cleaning fee is a profit center for us. My property manager, she's a profit center for me because I have a baseline salary I pay her. Once we hit certain bonuses, because we're helping other people manage their Airbnbs, that's another profit center. And we actually teach them what they should have essentially in their Airbnb to become a super host. And now we also then slip in if you let us stage it for you, if you let us set it up the way we would want, everything from your cute little book to everything from creating services of like what limo drivers to pick you up at the airport, all these things. We now basically say, why don't we just manage this for you? And she manages it from her little computer, has all the relationship with the cleaners, and she charges them for their furniture. Oh, also helps them design it and charges the package fee. So like, that's a whole nother business in itself that's becoming fun for us. Because I've had my own experience on it, and now I've got all these wealthy people buying properties in Puerto Rico. They don't speak the language. They don't know where to shop. They don't know and they need someone who's bilingual to help them manage these properties. It is growing for us like hand over fist. With, again, this is another way to arbitrage someone else's desire to grow. We're just solving the problem with that. So I'm glad you said that, because when you get yours in Puerto Rico, you know.
Sure. And just a quick story on, we all talking about community here, right? We're talking about community. Young man back there says, where do I get this 30K from? So the funny story about that property that V is talking about is, she just told you that she got the property from Drew. Drew acquisitioned the property. And I remember this like it was yesterday. V called me, I was outside running, and she said, hey, I got this deal. I plugged her with a lender. Now she has a great relationship with that lender, and she has tons of equity in that property. It's all about your network and just asking, right? Just get outsourcing, just asking, because it'll make things happen.
All right, so we do have a question that I want to get to, and it's from Stephen all the way in Dallas, Texas. And I hope Stephen is still here, but if not, I'll make sure. Stephen, if you are still here, let us know you're still here. If not, we at least want to get to it.
I'm still here.
Sent to us too, so we're gonna go over these real life scenarios real quick. I have a seller who now wants $188,000 for his house and owes $30,000 to the bank. Hold on, I can't see the question. And it's worth about $230,000. The home is not livable and has some fire damage. I've been approached with seller finance, but the seller wants the cash infusion equity right away. How do you handle a situation like that? Honest, it's not worth $188,000 to a cash buyer, but seller financing will give us that amount, but they will only put little down because it's a rental. All right, how would you guys handle this scenario?
Can I take this one?
Yeah,
Okay,
just make it short. So
I'll make it sweet for sure. I don't know about short, but so I get these all the time. And, you know, this is a negotiation. So you have an unrealistic seller. You got to understand like what you can do with that deal. At 230, 188, that's not enough spread for a fire damaged house to make some money on. Who's gonna buy that deal? Nobody right off rip, right? So the most powerful negotiation tool we have is Father Time, right? So sometimes you have to put them on ice for a second, right? And let him cool off a little bit and see reality, right? You can't be more thirstier than they are, right? So in this situation, like already, I mean, he's talked like 188 and he owes 30K. Nah, he needs to reevaluate what he's asking for, right? Because
I think the number one rule with negotiation is that you gotta be able to walk away. Like, hey,
100%.
it's not a deal for me.
Yeah.
And that's the person where they, whoa, wait. You never want to go into negotiations ever making it seem like you want it more than
100%.
that.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is that's what happens most of the time. People are trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It doesn't work. And that once you kill off that option, right, or have the seller kill it off, most of the time these sellers have been talking to somebody, a bunch of people, right, and getting blown up, right? So if that's happening, you can leverage that experience. You don't always have to be the bad guy. You can leverage that experience and then shed some light on it and help them understand why they're getting those type of offers, because that's where the market value for it's at, right? Sure. And then build off of that, right? So, I mean, ideally, realistically, 30K, first of all, is it fire damage you said? All right, now you got to ask questions about insurance, right? Why is he not putting in an insurance claim, right? You got to start finding the pain and finding his real situation, right? And digging a couple levels deep, right? So we're looking for solutions for him. We might not always be, the solution to go with, the best solution. Oftentimes we are, but we got to help them realize it, because if we say it, we're lying, right? If they realize it, it's true and they'll act on it. So in that sense, if you're not able to negotiate them down, a couple other strategies for unrealistic homes or sellers that might not work is taking it to OfferPad, right? OfferPad, Open Door, yeah, one of the iBuyers, even you know, one of us or whatever, we can buy it too, but they'll make a quick offer on it, right? Then you can kind of see baseline where they're at.
You know, and it's funny, you may want, but the reality of what you'll get is a completely different conversation. I was on FaceTime last night with my husband and our friend who lives across the street from us in Puerto Rico. We own a house in Puerto Rico, that we got pretty fortunate and bought, and it's really an exclusive community. And we live on the street that everybody wants to live on. And there's a couple homes that have either been abandoned, but have the best views, and there's a lot of inheritance issues, or like, you know, it's just complicated sometimes in these places where you don't, you know, like on the islands. But what I like to invest in Puerto Rico is because there's VA, FHA, and conventional financing, and there's a lot of wealthy people moving to the island. So what I like is that I have a competitive advantage, is that I know how to negotiate, I speak both languages, and I know how to make deals happen. So my neighbor last night, we're FaceTiming, and he says, like, we're laughing because he just bought the house across the street from us that has the most amazing view, but it was crumbled. The property was abandoned for many, many years. It had inheritance issues. Well, it went on the market for one day. They were asking 1.1 million. And my buddy's like, if you've never met Hamoudi, he's one of the best negotiators, and this guy's always smiling. He goes into every negotiation with a smile on his face. And he literally says, oh man, your house is for sale. Okay, I just, you know, I see you guys 1.1, I'll give you 500,000 cash. And he just smiles. And he's like, guess how much I got it for, B? Well, everybody's been after this property, but it's abandoned, it's a tear down, or you're gonna definitely have to do a lot of work to it. And once it's done, it will be worth $3.5 million. And he's got the financials to back himself up on this investment. He's like, I got it for $685 cash. $685 cash. The other house that he has down the block is I would say the second tier best street on the thing. They were asking $985. The reason I know is because I looked at that house before I bought the other house. He said, guess how much I got it for? $635. He put about 150 in it, but now he can sell that same house, the other one, for 2.3 million. And this one, once he's done with it, I said, what are you gonna do with it? He says, I don't know yet. I might do a tear down on it. But we are definitely gonna add about 2,500 square feet on it. He was like, but once I'm done with it, he says, it'll be worth 3 million, 3.5 million. But when you walk in there and be like, Stephen, I would say get Drew or me on the phone, or Israel on the phone, and have another voice who can, you know, partner with you on helping basically approach that seller with realistic expectation. But then they hear another offer that's in line. The problem is, if you're the only offering them something that's, you know, where you're trying to, in their eyes, unrealistic. But once they have multiple people like, now man, you know, 500, or I'll give you 88,000, not 188,000.
Yeah.
Or I'll give you 100,000, and just smile and make them feel a little bit of pain. They'll start getting realistic. You only owe $30,000 on this, my man. Like, and then I'll look, what did they pay for the property? What did they put into the property?
Yeah.
And how big is their pain?
Yeah, so I don't navigate these situations going what did they do to earn this amount, like, route, because it's kind of adversarial stance, you know, and doesn't really work well when you're trying to get into a marriage, right? I'm courting him to try to marry him to seller finance this deal, or do something creative, right? Or at least gain the trust that we can do something creative and make money on this deal. So I know the answers that we gave, what's his name, Steven, right now don't really help, right? But to really help, I would. So like, if you hit me up later, and look and see if there's any other.
All right, guys, so we like to keep this to honor your time, because we know you guys are all busy. We definitely will thank everybody who's been on the Zoom. I will make sure that you guys each get this slide deck so that you can become familiar. Next steps, obviously, we want you guys to become a member of the Grid Facebook group.com, and there's grids in different markets. There's Houston Grid, there's Tampa Grid, there's grids all over DC. Become a member of it, because there's deals that happen outside of your market that you may want to invest in. Stop thinking that it's only in Orlando. That, to me, that's super limited thinking. Join our local community, which is gridlocalevents.com as well, and Grid Agent Investment Advisor. There's a landing page for that too, which is gridagentinvestment gridaiadvisors.com. Grid is actually working with some really good technology to help you find deals, and help source deals. So you definitely want to get on the, gridaiadvisors.com. Okay, we will open it up for a little bit of mingling and questions afterwards. But again, want to at least honor our guests who are on Zoom. Thank you guys so much for being here. For our members on Zoom, if you could click that, we'll make sure you guys get the slides so you can become the education source in your market and you can study this. And most importantly, I want to make sure you guys have Drew's information, Israel's information. And for example, this is the type of stuff that we want to happen here. We just had someone who is highly experienced in wholesale, highly experienced in flipping, just said, hey, I got a deal right now that's been presented to me. I'd like to partner with you guys. I said, send the details, send the scenarios, already got the scenarios in our phone. She says, can we talk Drew, Israel, yourself, and we can all partner on this deal? And property's worth, total balance 361, home's worth 550,000 or more. So like, that's something we would want to look at, right? How do we make this deal work? So thank you for your trust. Israel, how can they reach you?
609-610-6222.
609-610-60222. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Or you can reach me on Instagram or Facebook, Israel.a.herrera.
Okay, and then Drew, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So for Instagram, it's sub2 Drew with the number 2.
Sub2 Drew
Mhm.
with the number 2 on Instagram,
And then my phone number is 407
407
373
373
3279.
3279. So guys, do you now have a trusted source of partners that you can come to? If you get a deal, do not lose that opportunity because of money or because of lack of knowledge. Because I promise you, there's not one person on this panel that either doesn't know who could solve the problem for you or help you out or coach you and mentor you and possibly partner with you on an opportunity if the deal's good enough.
Yeah.
So if you're open to partnerships and you're open to maybe just becoming a more savvier investor or just an expert so you can have those conversations. And also, if you're looking to grow your own personal business and brand, maybe you host an investor class or, or something for your clients, because your clients actually have money. You have a lot of people that you've sold homes to that are sitting on money that's idle right now. I got a family member of mine, her home is worth about $2.2 million. She owes $65,000. Conservative, he works at Microsoft, she's been at the same job for 20 years. I'm like, so how many investment properties do you have? They're getting ready to hit retirement age, and they're like, we don't have any, B, we want to, but we just don't know how to. I was like, to tap into that equity and get you cash flow. And they're like, would you teach us? You know how many of your clients right now just don't do it because they're a little bit more risk averse or just don't know that they can borrow against, their own bonds, or there's so many people right now that are waiting for an expert like you. This is why you have an obligation to become more knowledgeable. Even if you don't become the investor yourself, which we highly recommend, you start growing your own portfolio. But think about the amount. You should do a video when you leave here today on some of the things that you learn with these slides that you get, and go educate your past clients, because someone is ready to invest and just don't know who to call. All right. Well, if you guys enjoyed, we love feedback. We'd love for you guys to shout out on Facebook. We do this the third Wednesday of every month. We've tried this new time. We did it in the evening before. We like 10 o'clock, 10 to 11:30, lets you guys break out for lunch. Maybe you guys want to buy one of these guys did lunch. You never know. That's what I would be doing. But they're probably getting ready to go flip another property or go negotiate another property, but they need a little bit of fuel in their system anyway. But thank you guys for coming, and we hope to see you guys with the next one.
My fuel is money.
Thank you to our Zoom, guests. Really appreciate you guys. We hope that you guys found value, and we'll make sure that you guys get these slides. And we love your feedback. If you guys got value, make sure you shout out these guys, okay? Appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one.